Welcome back to Death Wench's SAS blog. And here we are with the second part of creating and using Proc SQL arrays in SAS. So in our last video, we constructed arrays, the same array in a little few different ways, using Proc SQL. In this video, we will use, inspired by Mira Kamar's article, we will use a combination of Proc SQL and a data step to use that constructed macro that's in memory to do some work for us. Now, before we can, I don't know what your background is with macros. I'm sort of speaking to a person like me who learns stuff and immediately forgets it because I know so many languages badly that I need to be reminded. So I'm going to explain to you a real-life problem I had that I used this approach to solve. In real life, if you get a bunch of claims data, like health insurance data, you end up with one person per row, but they'll have several diagnoses. And what often you want to know is if they have a particular disease. So you could construct an array of the different diagnostic fields you have and have it look at each of these. And then you can construct an array that says make a different flag for each of them. So we're going to do a simpler version of that. So what I want to happen to the study data set that I made up, go ahead and look at our metadata here and you can download this off of my blog. But I made up a pretend study. I made up all this pretend data. There's 100 people in my pretend study. They're all age 65 to 100. And they each have, what a coincidence, they have the exact same list of possible diagnoses that we were playing with from the previous article. Alright, so first, this is my study data set. I gotta get this into SAS. So we'll go, and I encourage you to see my video or read my blog post on how to download CSVs and then read them into SAS. So we're gonna download that CSV. Go over this nice fresh SAS instance of SAS. We'll import that data, import it from the CSV, and we're gonna go find it. Oh, there it is. And we're going to name this dataset study. And we're going to put this in work. Alright, so we'll look at the log. It seems pretty happy. Well, it looks like a happy log. We didn't even look at our dataset here study. Yeah, it looks like good. Seems to have read it and okay, didn't cut anything off. Okay. So then our next step is to start, let's load our macro, because like I said, that was a brand new, I'm saying load our macro, load our array. This is a brand new SAS instance, so we have to put this in memory. Now, we already know how to make this. There's a little twist on the code here, thanks to Mira Kamar's article. Remember how last time we used sas-maxlong instead of disease4, because in that way it didn't have to count. Well, the problem with sas-maxlong, the good thing about sas-maxlong is it's just in the system. SAS knows about it and you can just call it up anytime. The bad thing is it's not going to last out here. The way disease 1 is diabetes, disease 2 is something else, that in memory, it's going to forget it. So we have to get that number and somehow shove it into memory. And so what Mira Kamar shows us how to do is to get that number by doing select all this stuff. That's basically counting this. It's sort of manually. And we're selecting that into, look at the colon. That means it's going into memory. So we're selecting it into DSCNT. I'm using this from her article, from my data. So now we have, so what normally would have been in sas-maxlong, we have it in DSCNT, and we'll be able to use it out here. Select var name into disease 1 to disease DSCNT, which is going to be 4. Okay, so let's go back to the log and just make sure it's nice and clean. Then run the stuff. And so here's our little, that's nice, that looks good. We want to test if stuff ended up in memory. Let's put DSCNT. So here is what is in DSCNT. So remember ampersand, DSCNT. I apologize for all this background noise. It's a sunny day, and so we have the window open. And you go over here. Here is what is in DSCNT for. Okay, so far nothing's broken. Alright, so now we have our study data set. We have our array here. We've got it in memory. We have DSCNT in memory. What's the first thing we do is we copy our data set. Start mucking with the copy so we can get back to the old one if we screw it up, right? So again, easiest with the data step, as much as I love SQL. So here, now we've got study 2. So we're going to be messing up study 2. Okay, so the overview of what we're going to do next is first we're going to see if we can do by hand what we want the macro to do en masse. Then we're going to take that code and build it into macro language. So we'll have this whole macro machine that when we launch it, it looks in memory to see what's hanging around in DSCNT, disease 1 through disease 4, which we've already set up. It just looks there and it processes everything looking there. Okay? And we end up with all of our flags on our data set. All right? So let's first start by trying to do it by hand. So unlike data stepping, you have to create the column, the blank column in here. So we're going to create that flag column. You have to create it first and have it blank. You can't create it on the fly. So we did proc SQL no print. Here's our quit. Alter table study 2. Add diabetes flag num1. So that's what we're doing here. And we can look at the log. Pretty happy. And we look at this and we see, yep, that worked. So there's this empty numeric column. You see the dots. Okay, so next we want to update that column, and we want it to say 1 where the person has diabetes. We want to say 0 where they don't. So again, proc SQL no print. Update study 2, set diabetes flag equals 1 where primary diagnosis is diabetes. And then we'll do it again. Update study 2, set diabetes flag equals 0 where diabetes flag is null. So where nothing happened here, we'll do that. That looks pretty happy. So we'll go look at there. Diabetes 1, asthma 0. Pretty happy. Okay. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so now we know that we can do this by hand. So what ends up happening when we do it in real life? Let's make a new study 2 here. Just kind of bring it back to how it was. Now we're going to try and build a macro out of this. So I'm going to keep all this on the screen as we start trying to build our macro down here. Okay, so what our macro is going to do, just to remind you, is it's going to add 4 fields here. It's going to add diabetes flag, CVD flag, HBV flag, asthma flag. It's going to have 1s or 0s in it depending on what the person has here. If they have asthma, and the asthma flag will be 1 and the other ones will be 0. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. We got 1 to work. So because we're trying to do this, I'm going to name my macro flag disease. How about that? Name your macro something logical. So we start, now remember, we're programming a package of code that we're going to launch later. Okay, so we can't launch the code right now. That's why we did all of our studies up here. So we'll go %macro flag disease. And we might as well start with %mend flag disease. Just like proc SQL with SQL and quit, these are the bookends for macros and mend. Okay. So the first thing we're going to start with our macro is the do loop, because that's the whole idea. Is we want this to go through this 4 times and make one column each. We did the first time by hand, so we're going to go. And remember, this is macro language, so you're going to see so many % signs you won't even believe it. It looks a lot like it. Proc SQL language totally doesn't look like regular SAS. Macro language looks a lot like regular SAS, and often we get confused between the two, and some stuff you can do in regular SAS you can't do in macro language, so just be careful. All I know is if I see the sea of % signs, it's probably in macro language, right? So we're going to do j equals 1, surprise %, 2, what are we going to do? DSCNT, right? That's why we saved that variable. So 2j, why did I put that? It's equals 2j equals 1, 2. Well, this is going to be 4, but we know. So we want 4 loops. Okay. So why j? Well, j is a variable, actually. We're creating a variable here. And j is going to equal 1 the first time around. It's going to equal 2 the second time around, whatever. But if you're wondering why I actually picked the letter j, is one of my very good friends was named J. So, now our next step is, okay, so we established the do loop. So what's going to happen is until we do end here, we're going to have macro and mend, do and end. Until we have end, that's what's going to go around a bunch of times. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to let current disease equal ampersand ampersand disease ampersand J. This was my key to understanding what was going on in here. Each time around, current disease, this is a variable, current disease is going to equal whatever disease is happening right there. So the first time around, this is going to equal whatever's in disease 1. See, that's how it knows first time around. Look at what's in disease 1 and put it there, and that's going to be diabetes. When J equals 2 on the next time around, this is going to be a 2. It's going to look in disease 2 and put whatever's there, right? So, because I named whatever's going on current disease, I can now use it in code, and I know it's using whichever one it's coming around to. And this was sort of the necessity. Okay, so let's go up here. We already wrote a lot of this code. We just need to recast it into macro language. So we'll go to alter table study 2. Why doesn't this paste better? Maybe if I do like this. No, it just won't. Alright, I'll copy it from over. I'm going to copy the whole thing. I'll just show you what I did. There you go. Now, one thing is you'll see in macro language, you have, it's not compiling in the editor, and so, you know, you're not going to get this pretty blue stuff. That's why, another reason why you do this up here. So we have proc SQL notepad, alter table study 2, add current disease flag num1. Now what's going on here? Same thing as we did up here. Add diabetes flag. But look, we put, instead of diabetes, we put and current disease. Like we named current disease up here and now we're using it. The only reason why we have to put this little dot here is we want to say blah 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 flag, and the dot says, okay, we're done looking at the variable in memory, and the rest is just words that you're going to put next to it. It messes, you know, attach the string. Then we'll do update study 2. Now look at that. Diabetes flag equals 1, where primary diagnosis equals diabetes. Well, how do we do that then? So we did set current disease blah, 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 flag, right? Because that equaled diabetes up here. Equals 1, where primary diagnosis equals current disease. And we use 2 ampersands here because we're within these quotes, right? And so then here, update study 2 set current disease flag equals 0, where current disease flag is null. Right? And then we're done with our quit. So now we need to do our end to the do loop, right, to match that. We should be back here. To match this do up here. Okay. So, so we have all that. And then I always put a run down here because I never know whether you need one or not. And now we have built our macro. And theoretically, we should be able to compile this just fine. So how you compile it is you just basically go over it and you run it. Compiling doesn't do a lot. It usually does that. If it does something else and it really train wrecks, then you know you really screwed this up, because a lot of time it does that and it really doesn't work. Alright? I'm pretty sure this is going to work because I tried it, but who knows? Now, I just want to go over what we just did. First, in the first video, we learned how to construct an array in memory. And then we just did this here at the beginning. Then we constructed a macro that will use that array when we launched it. And we did that through our little studies, and then we just wrote it. Now we're going to see if that works by launching it. So let's go over, let's actually launch it. We'll do %flag disease. So here is the macro version where we were making it, and now we're going to run it. You just highlight it, do it, and let's go here. So this is what you see. It's sort of weird here, you know. Table work study 2 has been modified with 4 columns. 25 rows were updated, 75. You see what's going on here? It added that first column, updated 25 with 1, 75 with 0. Obviously this is fake data. It's kind of even. And then it added the 5th column here. So it looks like it kind of did it right. Let's pull it up. How about that? Here we got diabetes flag, all those flags. Got everybody flagged right. That's the CVD person. Okay. How about that? So hopefully now that I've showed you one example of how to construct an array using Proc SQL, and then also actually use that array using Proc SQL in a combination with this do loop, now maybe you can be free to do all those arrays, which I always had trouble with.